Hey guys, so this Friday's book review is going to be a bit different because I have not finished the book. It's been hectic this week. It's the week before school starts, so I've been doing a bunch of shopping, meeting with a bunch of groups for initiation, and it's just hectic. But the book this week was Dragonspell by Donita K. It was a request that I came a bit late on, but I came to it. And the request was to read it and compare it to Lord of the Rings trilogy by JRR Tolkien. I'm only on chapter 10 out of 50, but I can compare it and contrast it so far to what I know. Let me start with the characters. There are 4 characters so far, plus 3 spoken of characters with no physical bodies. The main character is Kale Alarion. Alarion is a last name given to her by one of the characters because she does not have a real last name. She's a slave, so she never really... It was never anything given to her of importance. Then there's the 3 secondary characters, which is Leetu Benz and Dar. They're her leaders to wherever she's going. And Granny Noon. Leetu Benz and Granny Noon are Emerlindians, and that's a race that's very... they're specific and they're important to know in this review because as they age, they get darker in skin tone. And Leetu Benz is really light-skinned, whereas Granny Noon is really dark-skinned. But Granny Noon is only in the book so far for probably 2 chapters. So she's not there completely. I don't know if she ever comes back in the story. So yeah, those are there are 4 characters so far. And then the 3 spoken of characters are Wolder, the Pretender, and Paladin. Kale is trying to get to Paladin as his servants. So I don't know really if Paladin is a pastor. What I'm guessing, because she's a servant to Paladin now, is that he's part of the Godhead Trinity, with Wolder being God and then Paladin being either Jesus Christ or the Holy Spirit. And then the Pretender is Satan, because, yeah, obviously by the name. And I got to this point of obvious, Wolder's God, the Pretender Satan, because Granny Noon tells Kale to trust in Wolder's truth and to avoid the Pretender, and to, if you have any questions, ask Paladin and he will answer. So yeah, my comparison and my contrasting to Lord of the Rings and this book is, my comparisons are 2 right now, and one isn't so much of a comparison as it's similar, I guess you can push it and say it's similar, is their writing style. Both are descriptive. This one is not as descriptive, but you can really see in your brain what is going on. It's not like some of those novels where you kind of have to guess where they are because it's not as descriptive. Obviously, for those of you who have read Lord of the Rings, you know how descriptive JRR Tolkien is. He wrote an entire world, an entire language. If he's not descriptive, we're basically lost. So yeah, there's that. And then it's not very much of a comparison, but I'm pushing it because I do feel like it's similar in that sense. And then another thing is Frodo Baggins and Kale Alarion have a sort of innocence about their quest. Frodo knows more somewhat in the beginning of the Fellowship of the backlog of the ring and the Dark Lord Sauron, which is also one of my contrasts, so the comparison and the contrasts are basically the same. But he knows just enough to keep his innocence, but also to make him feel wary about the ring. Don't put it on because this will happen, and, so on and so forth, etc., etc. So he's still innocent about the ring's true powers, but he knows just enough to avoid putting on the ring and avoid talking of the ring. That's all I could... Oh, and then Kale is very frustrated because she's not in the know of anything. She has to use her powers of finding dragon eggs to stop an evil wizard from using a certain kind of dragon egg to rule the world. And that's all she knows, and she doesn't even know who this wizard is, where she's going. She's just being led blindly by, Leetu Benz and Dar. The contrasts are 3. I have 3 contrasts. One is that Frodo Baggins has complete trust, with the exception of Boromir, in the entire Fellowship. And he trusts Gandalf, he trusts Aragorn, Legolas. He knows that these people have his back and that they will look out for him because he's the ring bearer and he needs to be looked after, or else, you know, the world is doomed. So he has complete trust. Chaol has zero trust. Chaol doesn't know whether or not to trust Leetu, Ben, and Dar because they won't tell her where they're going. They seem to not know where they're going. And she's very skeptical about that. But she's already lost enough to whereas if she stops following them, she doesn't know where to go. So she has to follow them or she stays in the forest forever. Also is that Frodo had a leader who was aged and who was wise, which was Gandalf, and then later on Aragorn, and then Gandalf again. And these leaders knew who to trust, where to avoid, where to go, who to avoid, stuff like that. Stuff, very important stuff that pretty much is life or death in some situations. Chaol is being led by, in the race's eyes, you know, in the Emerlindians' eyes, and in the Donil's eyes, Leetu, Ben, and Dar are kids, you know, and that's really signified by Leetu, Ben's skin tone color. She's really, really young. And all they know is to take her to Paladin, but they too don't know the full extent of the plan. Gandalf had some sort of idea of, you know, if he doesn't destroy the ring, this will happen. This is the plan. This is it, which is sort of a personification of God's master plan. So Gandalf was sort of a personification of God, if you get my drift. And then also is the comparison, innocence as opposed to the contrast of innocence. Frodo knew just enough to avoid him putting on the ring, telling other people of the ring, showcasing it. In fact, when Pippin made the mistake of just announcing it to that one bar, you know, he was panicked and he was just, he knows not to showcase the ring anywhere, to put the ring on. He knows that there are people after him. And Chaol doesn't. Chaol doesn't know who the Pretender is. Chaol doesn't know who Wolder is. Chaol doesn't know anything. And that innocence is being kept so far because she's not being told anything. So those are the only contrasts I can think of as of right now. Probably later on I will find more. So expect another video Wednesday. Like a finalized review because I'm going to be finishing it by Wednesday. You should, if you have any requests or recommendations, you can drop a comment below. I will get that and I will read it and review it, or yeah, read it and review it. So you should like this, subscribe to my channel, and be supportive. And I love you guys. Bye. Bye.